promised to them that love him. And let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. Okay? But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then, okay, this is what I like to call the anatomy of temptation, right? Our title tonight is the anatomy of temptation, and this is really when it comes in. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then, when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, okay? And here's what's wild. The story is not over at sin. The story is not over at failure. The story is not over at your malfunctions. The story is not over when you have made a mistake. But then it says, and sin, when it is finished. So there is a process, right? There's a process in everything. I love the analogy of credit cards versus cash when it comes to living for God, right? So when living for God is like paying a lot of cash up front for something, okay? It's kind of painful. You're letting go of a lot of stuff. You're getting rid of a lot of stuff in your life. You're letting go of things that ought not to be in your life, and sometimes you miss it, and sometimes that hurts, but you don't owe anything when you're done. And that thing that you get just gets better. And we have people like Brother Daphne, who every week, it's like an 8 to 10, right? That's awesome. You know, life gets better and better and better. More and more light is in your life as you go through life. And you become a stronger person when trials and tribulations come. You don't just get an out of it. God doesn't just rescue. He makes you stronger than the trial. That's amazing, right? That's what Christianity offers. It's the thing that Christianity really offers. If there is a product that the church offers, it's transformation. Like a lot of times people look at Christianity, they look at church, they look at a relationship with God as a transactional thing where I really like the stuff that God has, so I'll go to church so I have more credit with God, so he'll do more stuff for me. I'll live right so I have favor with God, and then I get stuff, right? I will do all these things for God. I will, when you're in a moment of crisis in your life, you start making a lot of promises to God, right? Like that's going to get him to do something. Okay? And a lot of people look at a relationship with God like that, but that's not transformation. That's a transaction. And this is not a transaction. What God offers is transformation. You're not necessarily just the same person now doing different things. You are an entirely new person. Create in me a clean heart and renew in me a right spirit. That's what it's offering, and that's amazing. Okay, so the opposite, right? That's going to be paying for something with a credit card. Okay? It's a big purchase, right? But you get it right now. You get that thing right now. That thing that living room set that it just called to you, you know? We were in the mountains this last weekend, and they had the Amish furniture, and I saw a table that was just the coolest table, right? They can do stuff with furniture, right? And it's all like solid wood. It's not like the amalgamated wood chips that are just kind of like pressed together with snot, and then just like, you know? If a little bit of water gets on it, it blows up like a sponge, you know? It's none of that. No, it's like solid wood. I'm like, this is going to be my grandkids' table, right? I was so tempted, you know? There was a price tag of like $5,000 for this table instead of chairs. And I was like, look, if I went somewhere else, I could, you know, it would be the same price, but it wouldn't be as good. So I really want to get this. And so, but paying for that with a credit card would mean I'm not just paying for it right then. I get the enjoyment right then. But then that $5,000 table costs way more than $5,000. There's an ugly thing every time you go to buy a house or you buy a car. It's called the truth in lending, right? It's the truth in lending page. And that's what I wish that we got when we sinned. because we get all the pleasure right now. We get that feeling that we're chasing. We're in a bad situation, and all of a sudden we can do something that makes us feel real good right now. But there's no truth in lending statement when it comes to sin. All we get is the Bible. So the thing is, if we pay credit card, we end up paying so much more than we intended. Because if the truth in lending statement was the price tag on that table, no one would buy it. But, hey, I get it right now. And I don't have to think about future Aaron. That guy's the worst, Forget him. Future Aaron's going to have to deal with this. Every time I shoot a video, I think, we'll fix it in post, I'm shooting a video, and I make all these mistakes, and I'm like, we'll just fix it in post. And then future Aaron's like, past Aaron is literally the worst. He's literally the worst. I'm never doing this again, right? It's a constant cycle of regret. And it's like not putting gas in your car on your way home and think, I'll just wake up early, and go to the gas station. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. You need to protect future you, right? All right, that's serious, actually. I know I'm being funny, but that's really serious, and that's exactly what we're talking about tonight. You need to protect future you. Is there any chance that I could get a bottle of water? And I've got this butterfly up here instead. That's amazing for me, actually, because, if you have ADHD and you just like to fidget with stuff, this could be a real problem. But I've got this up here if anybody wants it. Is this someone's? I'll give it to you now if you want it. They all left. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it so much. Okay, all right. So, why James? Why this series? I have to do this every time, okay? We're going to do it real quick, though. Why James? Why this series? This is about having unshakable faith in the face of trials, in the face of tribulations, in the face of weeks that are a 1 out of 10, You know what I'm saying? Yeah, in the face of that, this is about having an unshakable faith. It's about being able to be a strong person. It's about that process. It's the nuts and bolts of how you become. Okay? It's the nuts and bolts of here's what you do when you face stuff that is too big for you. You know how we say that God will never put more on than you can bear? Totally false. Yeah, he does it all the time. God puts more on you than you can bear all the time. It just happens, okay? But you know what? I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. You have a choice in every trial. You have a choice in every tribulation. Will I jump ship? Will I give in to temptation? Or will I be stronger? That's the choice you're making. And I'm here to tell you what to do with temptation. What is the anatomy of temptation? What is it going to do to me? How does it work? Well, I hope that I've done that. I hope we've got that. But this series is about having unshakable faith. So, James is writing to the dispersion. These were Jewish Christians that scattered and were suffering persecution. They were his congregation because they used to live in Jerusalem where he was the pastor. So when they go out, he gets lots of letters. Hey, what do we do? Hey, what do we do? What do we do? Our finances are shot. What do we do? And he's like, well, I'm very sorry, but God is not called to make the poor rich, and he is not called to make the rich poor. You need to understand that you have a different value structure now. All right, that was the very abbreviated rest of the lesson last time, right? But anyway, these people are disoriented, they're oppressed, they're uncertain, and temptation is creeping in. And as I've mentioned before, they are facing the hydraulic press of stress, okay? Guys, we talked about hydraulic presses before. Did you guys watch some of those on YouTube? Anybody go home and watch any of those? It's really cool, right? Go do it. If you haven't done it, go do it. It's like this really slow press, and they just put random stuff in there, like marbles, like crayons and toys, and it just slowly squishes it, right? But those things, that is what stress is like. As life presses and presses, we give out in the weakest parts. And so all these people that were in the dispersion were giving out in the places that they were the weakest. So And not just externally. They were not just facing like persecution. They're not just facing trials of finances, which they definitely were, which James talks about several times. But they're now James begins to talk about internal struggles, doubt, division, and disobedience. Because when you're in a trial, jumping ship starts to look really great. Because if Christianity is the thing that is causing this stress, I'd really like to not do it. If Christianity, if my relationship with God is causing, for them especially, was causing them to lose their money, lose their position, lose their friends, lose everything. If that's the thing if that's the thing that's in the way of all those pieces of that used to be in my life, I'm really going to be inclined to jump ship. Okay? James is calling them to an unshakable faith, a faith that survives life's worst by not ignoring pain, but by leaning into truth. And God is also calling us to an unshakable faith. And God is looking for a church that can transform hardship into strength. James isn't just talking about the pressure outside of us. He's deeply concerned about what that pressure reveals inside of us. So James chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation. He's saying to his congregation, look, I know that things are really bad for you right now. You know, James chose to stay in Jerusalem. Right? That's pretty dangerous. They left because their lives were being threatened. It doesn't say, his life still continued to be threatened. He was like probably one of the most wanted in Jerusalem. The pastor of the church, the main pastor of the church in Jerusalem, where the church started, yeah, he knows what they're going through. He knows what it's like to have to disappear for months at a time. He knows what it's like to have nothing except what God provides. He says, blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. So, okay, right? There is a reward promise. There's the crown of life for those who love God. And to contrast, temptation is the shortcut. It's a crown without a cross. If you like writing stuff down, write that down. Temptation is the crown without a cross. It's the thing that you get for what seems like no money. It's using the credit card. My life is rough right now, and I am going to do this to feel good right now. Okay? There's no blessing in compromise. There's no blessing in the shortcut. Okay? And so James is shifting from trials and external stuff to temptation, which is an internal thing. Because suffering wears us down. And when we're weary, we become vulnerable to shortcuts. If you write, I got a lot of stuff to write tonight. So like shortcuts, distractions, and escapes. We become really vulnerable to shortcuts, distractions, and escapes. Okay? And we really, really easily fall into the trap of using sin to get those things. Because, well, sin is an incredible shortcut to good feelings. Just ask Abraham. You know, Abraham, he was told that he was going to be the father of many nations. God called him out of a place of comfort. God called him, and he said, your lineage is going to outnumber the sand of the earth. It's going to outnumber the stars in the sky. He said, that's going to be you. And that's incredible, right? Because there's a lot of sand, and it's the worst, right? And Abraham, he hears this promise, and he looks at his life, and what does he see? No children, and he's like 90 years old. His wife hears the prophecy and is like, right? Laughs in the other room, and then they're like, oh, okay, let's see how this goes. And so what happens? Time goes on, and they're just like, okay, look, I know God said this. I know God said this, but what if we're not doing the right thing? What if we could just take a shortcut? And then they're like, okay, you know what? Let's just concoct this scenario where Hagar becomes the fulfillment of God's word. What if Hagar can be the shortcut? What if your concubine can become can produce the progenitor? And we see the end of that. It's horrible strife forever. And he was told he was going to be the father of many nations and had no children. But God's timing is not the same as our emotions, you know? Don't abort the promises of God by trying to fulfill it in a way that's easier for you. Okay? Sin is an incredible distraction. Just ask Samson. Samson, what a wild story, right? Okay, first of all, super strength, really cool, okay? A superhero straight out of the Bible. And has he's committed to keeping the Nazirite vow, breaks it all the time. Like all the time. God's like, don't touch any dead thing, don't cut your hair, don't do this, don't do that. And he's just like, I'm going to take this jawbone and kill all these people with it. I'm going to sleep around. I'm going to do whatever it is that I feel like doing, and I guess I'll just hold on to the hair as long as possible. Okay? Samson was supposed to be a judge. Samson was supposed to be a mediator. Samson was supposed to be something way more than he ended up being. But Samson really liked that distraction. Samson really liked that distraction when he was not being what he's supposed to be. You know what? I know that I'm not being what I'm supposed to. I know that I've broken this vow countless times. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go where I feel good. I'm going to go spend some time with Delilah. I'm going to go somewhere where this feels good temporarily. I'm going to check into something that I shouldn't be checking into. I'm going to go into the quiet parts of my house and begin to do something. I'm going to begin to look at some things that I shouldn't be looking at. I'm going to, in the middle of not being what I'm supposed to, in the middle of being so ashamed of what I am, I'm going to distract myself from the fact that I don't like myself anymore. So, sin is an incredible escape. Just ask David. David, the man of God, countless battles, is on a roll in his life. And you know what happened? You know what happened with David? Oh man, it would be so good if my generals would just take care of these battles. They're so good. Like, look at them. They're so good. They're so good at all this. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take some time off of this war. I'm going to go home, and I'm just going to recover for a while. I'm just going to recover for a little while, and I'm going to get involved with doing nothing. Right? I don't think this is in the Bible, but idle hands are the devil's workshop, right? Is that the saying? Okay, right? I don't think that's in the Bible, but it's really good. If it's not, it's a good candidate. David escapes his calling, escapes his duty, and finds himself on a night looking out over the city and sees a woman. And this is insane because, when he first sees that, maybe he bounces his eyes, He sees something he shouldn't see. He sees this, and maybe he's like, at first he's like, oh man, nope, not going to look at that. But then his mind begins to think about it. And then he's like, well, okay, I'm just going to find out who that is, because, she needs to stop. And I just need to know who she is so that, my messengers can tell her to stop. But tell me who it is just in case. And then he reaches out. And then this affair happens. And then in every single one of these scenarios, the sin has to be covered up. It has to be hidden. It has to be kept secret. And so, I want to give you now the anatomy of temptation, right? So, James verse 12 says, "Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life with the Lord, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. But every man is tempted," okay? Okay, step one, there is attraction, okay? Every man is tempted. No one is exempt from step one. It's coming. Don't care who you are. Don't care how holy you are. Don't care what your position is in the church. Temptation is coming. Okay? Attraction. Something stirs inside. When he is drawn away, okay? This is deception. All right, I'm going to list these out for you. First, there is attraction, and this is Genesis 3 and 6. Eve saw that the tree was what? Pleasing to the eye. Isn't that interesting? It's a garden full of fruit. It's a garden full of amazing things. It's a garden full of all these animals. And she's like, wow, that one looks really good. And maybe we have no idea how long they lived in the garden. Maybe she saw it every day. Maybe it's something that just kind of stuck in her mind. It's like, man, I love this, but this fruit in comparison to that fruit, that looks way better. And also, there's something amazing about this because this is a new experience. This is something that I've never experienced. This is something I'm not supposed to experience, and there's something that's being kept from me, and there's something incredibly enticing about something that I'm not supposed to have. And Eve saw that the tree was pleasing to the eye. And then deception. God's truth is doubted. Okay? Okay, so Eve then is probably hanging around this tree a lot, and Satan is in the garden. And he's like, I see an opportunity because I see the glint in her eye. I see the attention that she gives this every day. I see that she takes a walk every day, and half of the walk is walking just around this tree and looking at this tree and sitting down under this tree. And there's a preoccupation here. Her mind has become fixated on this thing. And then she says, oh, we're not supposed to eat it or touch it, right? Now that's really interesting because she said, God didn't say not to touch the tree. That was probably a barrier that Adam put in. Adam said, hey, look, we're not supposed to eat this tree, but I'm going to say, just to be safe, don't even touch it. And so a lot of scholars believe that while Eve was close to this tree, that Satan pushed her, and this is not Bible, but I think this sounds right. And maybe this is right, maybe it's not, who knows. But it kind of makes sense. They believe that she was pushed into the tree because the very next thing Satan says is, you shall not surely die. Are you sure that people aren't just trying to keep things from you? Are you sure that your parents just don't want you to date that girl because it's not good for you? Are you kidding? Don't they know how good she makes me feel? Don't they know that? People just don't understand my feelings. People don't understand how real my love is. People don't understand how real my attraction is. Don't they want good things from me? People obviously are selfish. And we believe that lie. We believe that people don't have our best interests at heart. We believe that that thing will make us happy. We believe that that thing will put out the fire that is in us that's like, oh my goodness, I'm having such a terrible time. If I could just reach out and do this thing and feel good, I would be fixed. And you just swipe that credit card. So, God's truth is doubted. And the first temptation was always to doubt God's goodness. And then the preoccupation. We reach. Adam and Eve take and eat, and David sends for Bathsheba. Judas agrees to betray. And then, number 4, conception. Okay? This is where sin is birthed. Okay? And like I said earlier, sin and failure are not final. But when sin becomes conceived, the ball really starts rolling. Because maybe like that, you do something, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I did that. I can't believe that I did that. What is wrong with me? Why? How could that have been me? I guess that's what I am. Adam and Eve take and eat. David sends for Bathsheba. Judas agrees to betray. Sin is birthed. And James says, sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to what? Death. So here's what I'm going to tell you tonight. And this is one of the greatest things that one of the greatest truths that I can bring to you. There is a growth process from sin to death. Okay? And that growth process, we don't know how long it takes, but you have a chance to get out. Okay? And getting out is not as easy as just getting really emotional. Because a lot of times we mistake our shame for remorse. Okay? And then what happens is we come to an altar, we feel guilty, we feel shame, we hate ourselves for what we've done, and we come to an altar with all that shame, and we cry and weep and confess to God, and we just like really just pour it out on the altar. And what we've done is we've relieved our guilt, and we walk away, and then Monday happens, and we're still in the tribulation. And instead of staying on the ship, we've taken a shortcut that has made us weaker, and that thing grows stronger. There is a process of growth from sin to death, and if you don't abort that process, it will kill you. Okay? All right. The very next step number 5, is subjection. Okay? Write this down. Write it in your skin. Like, get the tattoo pin out of your purse and just like go ahead and just like write this down. I'm kidding. I don't think we have those in our purses. I don't think that's how it works. Sin grows in darkness. Sin grows in secrecy. Okay? Sin is hidden, and shame takes root. Let me tell you something about shame. There is a huge difference between shame and remorse. Shame says, I've done this thing, and because of that, I hate myself. Okay? Because after sin, what we'll do, and we think that we're doing a good thing, we start beating ourselves up. We start pummeling ourselves like, how could you do that? How could you do that? How could you do that? You worthless piece of trash. How could you do that? We have self-talk like that. And we think that we're doing a good thing. We think that if we just beat ourselves up enough, that we'll get out of it. That is not the way it works. You see, remorse says, I hate what I've done, not I hate what I am. Shame will say, that is me. See, shame, the difference is shame takes ownership. Shame says, that sin is me. Because there's a part of us that doesn't want to let it go. And we would rather be identified with it. Remorse says, I don't want this anymore. If I could take it back, I would. And I will to the utmost degree and ability that I have. I will take responsibility for everything that I can. I will do whatever it takes to get this out of my life. I will do whatever it takes to turn away from this. That's remorse, and that's the difference. But see, when it's just shame, it's not, I'll do anything. Shame says, I'll just beat myself up, and I'll just hate myself, because that feels righteous. Okay? And then the sixth step. You see, and here's what it looked like in the Bible. David covers it up. See, what's wild is Bathsheba was the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Uriah was with David when he was a nobody. And that's insane, right? When David was a nobody, Uriah was there. When David was in the cave and he wasn't king and it was just him, Uriah was there fighting with him. And he sleeps with that guy's wife. And Bathsheba bears a son. And so David's like, okay. All right. Let's figure this out. Okay, let's get Uriah to come back from where I was supposed to be. Let's get him to come back home so he'll sleep with his wife, because that's what you do when you come back from war. Let's get Uriah to sleep with his wife, and then when the child is born, we can say, congratulations, Uriah, you're a new father. What does he do? He's covering it up. I can't take ownership of this. This can't be me. This can't be me, right? Judas isolates. See, what's wild about Judas is that his sin was so secret. He was taking money. He was the treasurer. And maybe it started with like, oh, I'm out and I don't have my money. I only had the bag that was for Jesus and was for the disciples. I only had this money, so maybe I'll just use this for convenience. I'll pay it back later, and then you forget. And then the next time it's like, oh, wow, that was really nice not to use my own money. I'm working really hard as the treasurer. I'm doing a really good job, so I'm just going to take like a little salary that nobody knows about. Judas isolates and nobody knows. Shame thrives in secrecy. And the step 6 is death, okay? Spiritually, relationally, and emotionally. Adam hides from God. David loses a child. And Judas allows shame to drive him to suicide. Adam and Eve, they experience temptation, deception, desire, and then shame. They hide from the presence of God. David is temptation in motion. He escapes from his duty. He lusts from the rooftops. And then sin gets conceived, and then it gets covered up. And then God sends Nathan the prophet. See, here's the thing. When we look at Judas, his story is tragic. Why? Because he never could find in himself to say, Jesus, I've been doing this. He never finds it in himself to reach out and say, I've been unfaithful. I've been the guy. I've been doing something that I shouldn't have. He could never find it in himself. Even when Jesus says, friend, go and do what you're going to do. I know you're going to betray me. I know what you've been doing. He knew it right then. He could have said, Jesus, I don't want to do this. You're going to call me friend when you know what I've been doing? You're going to call me friend when you know what I'm going to do? Shame, you see, what happens is shame takes control. And that sin was allowed to grow to the point that he had no control anymore. And when he betrayed Jesus and saw what he had become, what does he do? He kills himself. John 12:4, then saith one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him. Why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This is before, right? This seems pretty simple. This he said not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the bag and bare what was put therein. And then there's the secret ingredient. It's the thing that will bring the end of death in every scenario, including yours. In your life, it's secrecy. It's allowing sin to grow in darkness. And if you listen to nothing else, hear this. Allowing your shame to keep your sin a secret will make sure you never have victory. Allowing that beating of yourself up, allowing that shame to have the control that never allows you to tell someone and confess your faults one to another. That thing will make sure that you never have victory. If you haven't beat it by now, you're not going to beat it without bringing light into the situation. And I understand confession is the light switch that you've been looking for but refuse to pull. And I understand it's the last thing that you want to do. I get that, but I'm here to tell you that if you're stuck in sin, that death is the alternative. Luke 22:3 says, "Then entered Satan into Judas, surnamed Iscariot, being of the number of the 12, and he went his way and communed with the chief priests and captains how he might betray unto them. And they were glad and covenanted to give him his money. And he promised and sought opportunity to betray him unto them in the absence of the multitude. Sin kept in the dark led to shame too great to bear." What could Judas have been if the musicians could come? I know that I didn't realize what time it was. I'm sorry. But if musicians could come, I want to ask you this. What could Judas have been? You know what's really interesting? Judas was from a different place. Like almost all the disciples and the apostles were from Galilee. Judas was from an entirely different place. We could have had another Jerusalem. We could have had another Peter. Jesus even called him friend, even at the table. He might have been really, you know what? I like to imagine that he got along with Jesus. I like to imagine that he got along with people. And because nobody knows, nobody knew what was happening until the end. Sin grows in silence, but healing grows in honesty. James 5:16 says, "Confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed." Let's all stand. I want to invite you guys today to be honest with God and to be honest with each other. If I'm talking to you tonight, and you know who you are, you know what's in your life better than I do. If you want out, if you want victory, you're going to have to be honest. You're going to have to be open. You're going to have to tell someone, and I'm sorry to say that it's not just God. Would love it if it was, because that would be really easy for all of us to just pray it where no one can hear it, and there's no light actually turned on in our life. We just, we tell God and, hope God fixes it, We use prayer like a spell. We just say the right words. God just fixes stuff, right? No. God's in the business of transformation. And he said, confess your faults to who? One another. You need to find someone that you trust. Okay? I'm not saying it has to be me. I'm not saying it has to be pastor. You need to find someone that you trust. Maybe it is me. Maybe it is pastor. Maybe it's an elder. Maybe it's somebody who's been a voice of wisdom in your life. Maybe it's someone who's called you when you were in the middle of doing something you know you shouldn't have been doing. Maybe it's someone who just out of the blue texted you and said, "Hey man, just thinking about you." You need to find someone you trust. Maybe it's a spouse. Maybe there's secrets in your marriage. I don't know. So, David's story is pretty tragic. Judas is really tragic. But let me read this, or let me tell you about Manasseh. Manasseh is one of the most privileged people that we find, one of the most privileged kings. And because Manasseh's dad is Hezekiah. Okay? Hezekiah is one of the most righteous kings of Israel ever. And Hezekiah has a very close relationship with Isaiah. The prophet Isaiah, the really big book, one of the major prophets. He's close friends with them, family friends. Hephzibah is really close with Isaiah. And to the point that Isaiah and Hezekiah pray all night in the temple and armies go away. Armies that were supposed to attack Jerusalem are just gone. Amazing, okay? And Hezekiah's on his deathbed. Isaiah comes in and prophesies that, Hezekiah, you're going to live for 15 more years. I know that you're on your deathbed, and that was your future. But you're going to live another 15 years because God said. Okay? Manasseh is born the second year after. So Manasseh literally owes his life to Isaiah. Manasseh, and then Manasseh is like, what does that make him? 13? 13 when his dad dies. And then he's raised by Hephzibah, Isaiah, and then his friends in the aristocracy. And his friends in the aristocracy really liked idolatry. Okay? I'm not going to tell you his whole life story, but I will tell you, Manasseh drifts so far from truth that he literally has Isaiah sawn in half. It said that he kills so many men of God that the blood ran from one end of Jerusalem to the other. He falls so far. And then sin is conceived, and it grows, and it grows, and it grows. And you know what happens to him? He gets taken by Assyria. And the Bible says that they drive a hook through his lips. And that's how they lead him to Assyria. They make him walk all the way to Assyria. The king, they make him walk all the way. And in the dungeons, when his life is over, Manasseh finally finds a place of repentance. Manasseh finally finds a place where he says, I'm wrong. And I'm not the good guy that I thought I was. And Isaiah was right. And I killed him. And you know what's wild? In the middle of all of that depravity, in the middle of being in the dungeon, God calls him back. God pulls him all the way back to Israel. God removes him from the dungeon, and what was left of his life, he gets to be king again. He's rescued. If he can be redeemed when it's over, like that's over. You're the king and you were led to the dungeon. You experienced this horrible situation. It's over. Like it's over. If he can experience redemption, then so can you. If that's the line, you're not there yet. If you're in this house right now and you're breathing, you're not there yet. I want to invite people to come forward and say, I don't want to hide anymore. I want to invite people to be honest with God and each other. And I want to tell you it's never too late. And the enemy wants you to believe that it is, but the cross says otherwise. James 1:17 says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Of his own will beget he with us the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. God doesn't tempt us. He doesn't change. He gives good gifts, including the power to resist, repent, and be restored. There is restoration and there is victory, and there is so much more than the concentration camp that you've created out of your own life. There is so much more than shame that could be your destiny. There is so much more than just covering it up. There is so much more than being like a dog that returns to its vomit week after week after week. There is so much more. But you're going to have to get honest. You're going to have the courage to turn the lights on in your life. You're going to have the courage to do something about it. You're going to have the courage to do the thing that you think is impossible, but it's not. It's the only way actually forward. It's the only way that actually gets you there. Don't be Judas. Don't be Manasseh that waits. Don't be David that tries to cover up. Don't be Adam and Eve that try to hide from God. God is trying to reach for you right now. Let's pray. God, we come before you. We come before you honestly.